If you plan on using Airbnb to make money ever as a host, this video goes right in that absolutely must-watch category. This is a video that you should watch before starting an Airbnb business or investing another single dollar into that machine. As a self-made Airbnb millionaire with over 100 properties on Airbnb, fully automated, making millions of dollars per year, 7 years experience, all the good stuff, I'm going to teach you what Airbnb is, but not through that regular lens that you would see like, oh, it's an app, it's a peer-to-peer platform, you can travel on it, great place to put your space up. No, before you start an Airbnb business, it's important for you to look at Airbnb as a business owner would. Like through the lens of value creation, how can this help you generate cash? Profitable cash, millions of dollars per year, something sustainable, something duplicatable, something predictable, and hopefully low enough risk. As I've looked at Airbnb, I'm gonna tell you my story quick, how I started making money on Airbnb, and it's extremely important for how you should look at Airbnb, because I've seen big companies come and go. Companies like Stay Alfred, who had hundreds of millions of dollars of cash, and they died. But then there's little companies that have found a way to slowly grow. I have students that make $4 million per year on Airbnb, right? You don't need to be a well-funded VC in order to make money on Airbnb. You just need to look at Airbnb the right way and think of it smart. And there's a mistake that a lot of you are making. If you have real estate experience, you will lose tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars per year by looking at Airbnb the wrong way. So hopefully this video will fix that for you. So newbies, buckle in, and real estate people, try to have an open mind on this video. Let's go. Airbnb family, welcome back. This video is extremely important for everybody who's ever going to touch Airbnb because it talks about that strategic intersection of hospitality and real estate. Airbnb has made that possible, but they're not the only player in the game. And we're gonna talk about that. So my come up story, I'm going to keep it really short. I was in the newspaper industry.
Can you hold on for just 1 second, please? Let me
$1 million business was a sales organization.
I apologize. I screwed up on my edit on this video. And I need to reshoot the next minute and a half if you don't mind. And it's a completely different day, different outfit. I just got back from Austin, actually just drove in. Dallas is about to get crazy cold and freeze, and it's going to be rough, but I'm back. And we're picking up 40 leases in Austin at about 5 different properties. Yes, Austin is hard to get into because of permits and stuff, but we're making it work. So 40 more doors here coming soon. But my startup story I want to share with you, and again, I'll try to make this quick. My first business, and it's actually kind of fitting. Hold on, let me turn this down. Let me dim this a bit. All right, so my first business is sales related, and that's actually how I'm picking up these leases in Austin. Picking up leases is a sale, by the way. It's totally a sale. So my first business helped newspapers stay in business by selling people newspaper subscriptions. It's called audience development. And I got into it back in 2007 while I was in music school. I was in a screamo band. My drummer talked me into sales, actually. That's how I got into that. Now, I took a job promotion, moved down to Houston, started building, an account, went homeless along the way after I left that company because they demoted me. I didn't take that so well. But I eventually started my own business in the newspaper industry, building sales teams for newspapers, and I kept that going until COVID killed my business just a little bit more than a year ago, which is sad because, of course, it's face-to-face selling inside of grocery stores. Definitely not something that people want to stop and talk to you if there's some infectious disease going around. So my biggest business has been sales. And at the peak of my business size, back in about 2014 into 2015, I was relocating salespeople. So in order to get them to come work for me in Houston, I'd be moving them in from Wisconsin or Michigan or California, and I'd give them a relocation package. I was renting apartments, and then I was furnishing them and having them move in and live there while they were selling for me and earning commissions. And I made this just this really easy to come work for Sean kind of situation. And it worked out really well. But over time, there was, a situation in Houston where a couple people moved back home, one relationship ended, somebody took a job promotion, went to a different market. I just happened to have 2 apartments that were fully furnished with 10-month leases and no one to live in them. So naturally, I needed a solution, so I put them on Airbnb. And that's how my first Airbnb properties happened, was because as a business owner, I was about to lose money on some real estate, furnished properties, and I needed a way to fix it. Well, fortunately for me, Airbnb started making money, profitable money. And at that point, I started to see this as an opportunity. Once the Super Bowl came to Houston in 2017, that's really what cinched it for me. I'm like, this is going to be huge. And this is where it got really cool. Me looking at Airbnb differently than everyone else was looking at it. Instead of as a way to modify how you could make money on your property, now I was getting into property fresh, ones I didn't own, because I found a value gap. right? The gap between what a landlord could collect and what I could collect by modifying the purpose of it, transferring it from real estate into hospitality. And I didn't really even understand hospitality yet, but I didn't have all the biases of real estate weighing me down or holding me back. So moving forward for the rest of the video, remember, my whole shtick with Airbnb, my whole world with Airbnb has never been about real estate or what that property should be valued at, what the rents should be. I'm looking at the market and asking how I can outperform the market utilizing the same square footage that a landlord would. Let's get back to your programming here. Thanks for your time.
Now this was great. There's a hack here too that I need to tell you about. I was evicted in 2009, and the reason why I started leasing apartments through my business was because I got evicted. And I couldn't get a lease until, say, 2014, 2015, I was able to finally start leasing as a regular human again. But I got really comfortable with leasing through my LLC, and that's kind of how that worked. As I grew my Airbnb portfolio, I focused on finding buildings that I could get rent from at a nice price that I liked, compared to what I thought market rents were, and then get the landlord to give me rent for free on the front end. In exchange for a longer lease or fast move-in, other forms of influence, I got free rent on the front end, which helped me pay for furniture. And then I put it on Airbnb at a huge margin, and then that cash flow came back and I had extra cash to reinvest. And I snowballed my Airbnb business off of the concept of low rents, high nightly rates, and free upfront lease concessions to be able to fund my furniture purchases. So now I own over 100 apartments worth of furniture. All the furniture is working in different units. I'm paying rent, but because they're furnished and have full utilities, they make these huge markups. Now I think this is where a lot of people get trapped up. We are using real estate. Yes, we are using an apartment or we are using a house, but just because it is the same literal product, same square footage that you would use in a real estate business, like a long-term landlord seeking a long-term tenant, the product is no longer the same. We are now taking real estate and moving it into a real estate adjacent industry. And a lot of real estate investors get trapped up here because their priorities on where they want to make their money, it slows down how much money they can make. In previous videos, I do super long-winded math on the topic, and I'll just breach it really fast for you because I want to get back to giving you the real understanding of Airbnb as a machine. A lot of landlords, a lot of real estate agents, a lot of real estate investors, their primary goal is to build equity into a property. This is one of the most traditional, most understood ways of building wealth in the United States is that you get a mortgage, which is leverage, you buy a property, and then you put a tenant in there, or you can Airbnb it and make more cash. But the problem with this model is once you get to scale, 4, 5, 6 properties, those 20% down mortgages become really cost constrictive for the business. And this is where this millionaire mindset comes in. If I want to invest $100,000 into a business and make the most profit, I don't care if the profit is that I get some of my profit in the form of asset appreciation or equity buildup from paying a mortgage. I don't care if one of my mechanisms for profit is that, or if it's that I just get a bunch of cash or somebody literally hands me diamonds. I don't care where my profit comes from. If I put $100,000 into a business, I want to make the most amount of money for it. Now, in some TikTok videos, I did an example of buying a property for $100,000 or doing Airbnb arbitrage, which is my model of renting for $100,000 invested side by side. You can rent 4 4-bedroom houses in Dallas and furnish them for about $100,000. Or you can buy 1 4-bedroom property and furnish it for $400,000 with a 20% down payment. Now, the ownership example, end of that first year, will make about $146,000, $150,000 after debt pay down appreciation and cash profit from Airbnb. Right? But the arbitrage side, even though it's paying rent on 4 properties, its cash flow is ballooned from operating 4 properties. Now, it doesn't get any debt pay down or appreciation, makes no money in that category. But instead of $150,000 total profit, including cash and equity, they make $420,000 cash profit, right? So $420,000 in cash is more than $150,000 in cash equity combination. Make sense? And this is where I want you to start to understand the mechanisms of Airbnb as a business model. Now, arbitrage is slightly harder than ownership because the bar is higher. See, if you bought a property and you did not do so well with Airbnb, you didn't make as much money as you should have, you will still pay your mortgage down. And you'll still keep some of the money that was in the middle that you would overcharge to a tenant. A lot of landlords like to make, $200, $300 a month cash flow on a property, depending on how much that rent is. And so you'd get that extra $200, $300 that the renter would still have to pay to the landlord. All the other internal expenses are the same. Now your mortgage, your debt pay down over time would start to get good. But your first couple of years buying a property, you might get $100 a month or so of debt pay down. Your mortgage is heavily in favor of interest. But over the long term, if you did not improve as an Airbnb operator, you would still get your debt paid down on your mortgage, which is nice. So you kind of get a little backup plan when you do buy a house. So buying is easier if you're not good at this, in a way. But renting, if you start to make any reasonable amount of profit, is where the top side comes in. So here's how you can use this to build a business. And we can talk about this in a big way too. I want to talk about big money, not just a little money, because you're not here on this video to maybe set up one apartment and walk away, right? You want the millions. Bird's eye view. You've got websites like Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com. These are called online travel agencies. You can put a piece of property that is typically reserved for long-term only use, and as long as you get permission from the landlord or buy it in a place where the HOA allows this, and you're in a city where the regulations are friendly enough, you can put that property on the short-term rental market. These online travel agencies bring you business, but it's only one of many ways that you can get business. As this industry evolves, we'll use Airbnb and VRBO less and start to do direct bookings or niche marketing more. Examples are travel nurses. There's a website called Furnished Finder. It's really not the best website. You don't get a lot of traffic, but it really focuses on one type of customer. And that customer is a multi-month traveling nurse on a contract. And their money is good. Some of these nurses make $4,000, $8,000, or $10,000 a week while they are on their contracts. They can afford this. There are other things like insurance placements. If somebody's house, burns down or there's a flood and they need to redo their kitchen, they need to stay somewhere for a series of time. My neighbor across the street from this penthouse here, I'm on the top floor of this building called the Katy, their insurance company paid for a penthouse for this family to stay in because it was comparable to the building that they were getting repaired. So they stayed there for 5 months. Now, if you instead rented a property, fully furnished it, and then got that same insurance contract, you could have got $14,000 a month from that person. And they wouldn't have stayed in a penthouse, but they also wouldn't have had to get their own furniture, right? You could have gave them a house. Your total internal cost could have been $4,000 a month, but you could have profited $10,000 a month on an insurance placement. This is an example of another possible customer type once you have furnished short-term rental friendly properties. Now, there are other ways to get customers, like we even use things like Facebook Marketplace sometimes in slower seasons. And we use real estate agents who have VIP clients that are coming in for special events. They'll say, hey, we want to place them somewhere. We want no one to know that Taylor Swift is coming in for the Super Bowl and she wants to bring her cats, right? Boom, $10,000 type of placement. So there are ways to make money off of Airbnb. So just know that. If you start to look at this business model, utilizing Airbnb first as a true business, you start to look at the pros, the cons, and the necessary resources. The pros to Airbnb is when you do arbitrage specifically, you need very little cash to get started. Compared to most businesses, you don't need much cash. And the profit margins that you get and the rate at which you start making profit is really darn quick, which is cool. The cons are that you're getting into kind of a public industry where a lot of people can get in and you're relying on third parties like Airbnb to really push your marketing for you until you can get on your legs. So you should have a plan to grow. Now, to grow, you do need resources. You'll need to keep reinvesting the cash that you make. You'll also need to start hiring people. And the most important people to hire are housekeepers because the most work that is done in an Airbnb property is cleaning. And the quickest way to make more profit is to pay less for your housekeeping. And if you can turn your Airbnb business into a business that really focuses on human capital, human resources, talent management, you have a small group of housekeepers that do a bang-up job that clean for 30% the cost that you would pay a third party, and now you can put that extra savings back into more and more and more doors. You'll eventually hire a manager to work with you to manage those housekeepers, and you'll continue to grow this business like that. So look at Airbnb this way. You have a means to take a property from one industry, whether you buy it or rent it, and if you move it to this adjacent industry, it just makes more money. It makes 3 times, 4 times more money per month on average because it's no longer real estate, it's hospitality. Airbnb has created a free-flowing marketplace where if you furnish their place well, you're guaranteed a flow of customers. As long as you do your market research and don't put your property somewhere where customers just don't exist, which is very rare, by the way. But as long as you do your market research, you'll look both ways before you cross the street. I have videos on market research here. You put your property on the market, make sure it's furnished well, and start to provide a hospitality-based service, hospitality business to people who are traveling to that area. If you do a good job and start to capture customer data using something like StayFi, you can build your own direct booking website or just give people incentives to return to stay with you, and you're slowly pulling your business off of online travel agency websites. This should be the long game, the long goal. 1,000 properties with your own app where people can check into their properties and rebook with you, stuff like that. Own social media where people are like, wow, this place is super cool, let's go stay there. And they book through your social media channels. This is your long-term goal. It's not just to put a few houses on Airbnb and then get a property manager that charges you 25% of your revenue so that way it's passive. See, that's where a real estate person loses all of their profit. A real estate owner would be like, I'm gonna buy this property because it's going to appreciate. I'm gonna put it on Airbnb because it makes way more cash flow, but I don't wanna do the work of a business, so I'll hire a company and they'll charge me 25% of my revenue. And in that case, a property that does $15,000 a month, and the landlord's internal expenses become $5,000 a month, maybe $6,000 a month after housekeeping. Well, at the point that you split the 25%, they'll probably take 25% of like $13,000. So now they're keeping, $3,000 or $4,000 of your money, right? So now you get $9,000 and your cost was $6,000, you only get $3,000 extra cash flow. Sure, that's better than having a long-term tenant and only making $300 in cash flow. But if only that landlord realized by hiring their own housekeepers and paying attention and doing a little bit of work, instead of making $3,000 monthly profit on top of their regular long-term strategy, they could make $7,000 or $8,000 a month in profit per property. So this is where a lot of real estate people, they don't get it. They lose money two ways. They spend too much money to get into the industry because they buy a property. And then they think that this is just some other form of real estate where you hire a property manager, but those property managers are expensive. So then they lose $40,000, $50,000 a year profit per property. So if you're a real estate person, I want you to fire your co-host. I want you to do it yourself. And I want you to be prepared to understand that this is a lot of work. So respectfully, thank your co-host for doing all of this work that they've ever done and let them go and do it yourself if you want to make true money. And if you are getting into this industry, on the other side of the coin, you can pick up your own properties with rental arbitrage because it's the cheapest, and then you can find landlords who refuse to watch a video like this, and you can go co-host for them and take 25% of their revenue off of their property. And with co-hosting, you don't have to pay rent, you don't have to buy the furniture, all you have to do is have a track record of success and tell the landlord that they'll make more money letting you co-host than they'll make with tenants. You convince them to buy the furniture, and then you perform. And what's surprisingly fun is those landlords that don't watch videos like this, that $3,000 in profit we talked about, where you get to keep like $4,000 of it cash flow in your pocket for a management fee, and then they make $3,000 on top of like their normal mortgage stuff, they're gonna be happy with their $3,000 net. On a $15,000 revenuing property, they'll be happy to get all their regular expenses paid plus $3,000. They'll be like stoked, and you'll have this super booming co-host business. Now, those of you upset about me saying fire your co-host, remember, not a lot of real estate people are gonna watch this video. And this is another one of these truths about this industry. A lot of landlords and a lot of homeowners, a lot of real estate investors are so stuck in the traditional way of doing real estate that is exactly why they will let you co-host, they will let you rent to do arbitrage, and they will just stay out of it. Real estate people don't want to do work. They want to do the comps on a property, they want to hire a crew to renovate the property, force some appreciation, get that home value to go up, and then they want to sit on their tail and do nothing and collect a check. So if you do arbitrage, even if you start crushing it on their property, they won't ever try to fight with you to get the property back to Airbnb themselves. They don't want to do the work because Airbnb is a business, it's not a real estate play. And anytime a landlord gets into this industry hoping it's going to be passive, they usually get right back out. So in my defense, it is absolutely fine for me to tell an ambitious real estate developer who wants to get into hospitality to do it themselves. It's absolutely the right advice. But it's also insightful for you to understand that you should not be afraid of approaching landlords who just want a rent check and saying, hey, I'm gonna co-host for you, or I'm gonna arbitrage. I'm gonna arbitrage your property, rent it from you for 3 years, if you don't have street credit yet. Once you have street credit, feel free to start going to landlords and saying, hey, let's make more money on your property. If you run an Airbnb business, you'll be in charge of housekeeping quality. You'll be in charge of guest experience, helping guests check in, answering their questions late at night. You'll be restocking things that either break, get used, or are stolen when guests check out. You'll be chasing them down for refunds or for extra monies when they do stupid stuff like this. In the world of hospitality, you make your most money by dealing with stupid. And that's okay, because when people travel, it seems that their IQ drops. These are smart, great people, but when they travel, they don't want to worry about anything, and they do really dumb stuff. If you're fine with that kind of high-touch business model, then this could be for you. And if you understand this at scale, that your advantages come from reducing your internal costs, which include housekeepers, talking landlords into free rent, which is another cost reduction, but another way to get cash back a lot faster. If you're looking at this through the lens of margin and value creation, you can make a ton of money, just like I did. I have a free course on this YouTube channel, believe it or not, absolutely free course, and I have a Facebook group that's also free to join. So you can ask people their opinions on areas, on types of properties, what they would do in like specific situations. There's not a lot of gurus, like people like me, who will give you free content with no ask, okay? So if you cannot find other people like me who will just tell you matter of fact what you should do, then take it to the court of public opinion. Go to Facebook groups and ask a consensus of hosts for answers. You're gonna get about 20 answers, and you might get 4 useful ones. Remember, this is a competitive industry, and it's not as easy as it used to be. You will see like hosts in Facebook groups griping about how hard it is or how bad guests have become. That's an advantage for you. I remember that in sales, we'd have sales guys who did really well for say 6 months or 9 months, but then they would burn out. And they would not take accountability for their burnout and say it's just gotten harder. We'd hire a couple new sales reps and they'd crush and make new sales records because they didn't know that it was supposed to be hard. So people don't adapt nearly as much as they should in industries, and that's why companies go out of business. The reason why Stay Alfred went out of business, I said I would tell you this, is they treated the business like a tech company, not a hospitality company. So some failure we just talked about was landlords treating this like real estate because of some bias. Well, because Stay Alfred came from the West Coast, and they're so used to that world, and they got their venture capital money from people who have invested in apps and stuff, and they're building their business off the back of Airbnb, which was a technology. Their big dream was to be a tech stack that used real estate to push people into properties, but their value creation was going to be through a tech stack. Now, a lot of companies with venture capital money from the West Coast, they're totally fine with losing money. Like totally fine with losing money. And I just saw an article yesterday that talks about companies like Vroom and Carvana and all these publicly traded companies where their stock shares are plummeting now because they've actually never generated a profit, and investors are finally going, hey, this is stupid. We're not investing hundreds of millions of dollars for you to forever lose money just to get bigger, bigger, bigger. The plan typically with these types of businesses is to throw a ton of money into a business, scale recklessly at all costs, blow money along the way. It's called a burn rate. And then once they're big, try to find ways to optimize to generate a profit. Now, I do coach million-dollar businesses or bigger. I also advise for private equity firms that do this. And one of the biggest aspects of this business model is to launch, gain control, and then optimize. You won't be as profitable in the beginning as you launch and try to gain control. And then as you optimize, you'll start to shave costs here or there or pick up extra revenue here or there as you start to understand the industry. So there's still a level of truth to that, but you can be profitable right out the gate in this industry because this is not a tech business. This is hospitality. You can have a property and somebody will pay you a premium day one for your property. There's a couple other topics that you're really going to want to research as you get into this. Start with my free course. We're going to talk about things like pricing strategy, market research, and sales techniques to talk to landlords into giving you a property. That's where you should start. Now get into my Facebook group, the Hosts of Airbnb Automated. Start learning and start asking some questions. And remember what industry you are in if you do Airbnb. You're going to talk to a lot of hotshots in real estate that are going to try to tell you to do stuff that you should not do. You really shouldn't be buying a property if you want to start a business. It's totally cool to buy a property for other reasons. If you want to diversify, put your assets into something that's not cash, buying a property is great. You want to leverage an FHA mortgage because that thing is like so little money down, that's great too. If you decide that you don't want to grow so fast that arbitrage shouldn't be your only strategy, arbitrage some properties and then buy a property and then arbitrage some and then buy one as a way to get your mix in there. You can do stuff like that. But if you care about profit, you care about scale, sustainability, making a real business, buying a property will slow you down. And I apologize to all you real estate enthusiasts out there. You're not watching a real estate channel. You're watching a hospitality channel. Airbnb is hospitality and not real estate. I hope that helps you guys. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you on the other side.